everybody, and welcome. So if you are just joining us, we're just getting things going here for the book gathering with Dori.
And Tara.
And Tara, yes. I'm so excited I get to start jumping in on the studio set now with Dori. So we are live on Facebook, Instagram, and Zoom. So we're so happy to have each and every one of you with us. And as all of you know, we are discussing how to make millions with your medical spa, written by yours truly, Dori Soukup. And so we have done a book gathering of yours, but we went through it so fast. We did
a quickie during the coronavirus.
And we've been getting so many clients calling us and saying, can you please break it down chapter by chapter? So that's what we're doing. We have answered your request, and now we are going chapter by chapter discussing Dori's book. So I'm so excited to have everybody here. Dori, are you ready?
No. Are you?
It is gonna, we have 15, 16 chapters?
Oh my gosh, we have a lot to talk about, actually. Yeah. People always ask me, why did I write this book?
Yes.
And after years of helping clients like yourself elevate their success, I'm like, I've got to put it in a book so people can access the information. So that we did. And we've already sold actually thousands of this book. I love Amazon because they send me a check once a month. And even though we were selling it for only $1.
I know.
But we had a reason for that. We wanted everybody to get their hands on this book because truly when you follow the systems and the structure and the solution and the strategies that I have in this book, you will totally be able to transform your business. Right. So what we're gonna start doing is going through every single part of this book. We're gonna start with chapter 1, which chapter 1 is all about the secrets to a healthier business. It's a nice little overview, actually, chapter 1, to give you an idea of what's to come more in depth as we go through the book. But if you don't have your hands on one yet, so there's a couple of things I want to tell you. One is you can go to InSPArationManagement.com and actually download an electronic version totally free. All you have to do is you'll see it right on the homepage. And if you want a hard copy, you can just pay shipping and handling, and we'll be happy to ship you one. Again, you can do that from InSPArationManagement.com, or you can go on Amazon and purchase it. The reason we did the Amazon for $1 is with Amazon, when you buy a book and if you want to leave a review, you can only leave a review if you bought the book. And that's really why we want to have you pay $1. It's not that we care about the dollar. It's just so you can leave us a review at a later date and help us like we're helping you. So it's a win-win situation, right? So that's really what we want.
And we're all about win-win situations, right?
For sure. So if you're brand new to InSPAration Management, we are a consulting firm. We help people like yourself elevate their success, and we do it through webinars and seminars and educational events and tools. Anything that you really need to help you succeed, we more likely have some kind of a model for it that you can implement. And that's our entire existence is based on helping you get what you really want out of your business. And what we do, normally people send us questions, so we're gonna go through chapter 1, and we already have a lot of questions that usually come in. There are most frequently asked questions based on the topic that we're actually going through. And we're gonna go through some of the content, and then Tara's gonna be asking the questions to help us go through and clarify any points. Now, those of you who are with us live, you're more than welcome to submit your questions in the chat box. I would love to hear from you. Tell us who you are, where you're from, maybe what challenges you might be having with your business, or what is it that you need help with. So get engaged, get involved. Now, those of you who are on live and would like to go back and watch this over, all these are being videotaped and they're being placed on the YouTube channel. And you'll be able to go and review them over and over. Now, if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, it's filled to the rim with great content.
I would say I think it's overflowing.
Overflowing.
It is full.
So you gotta go, and don't forget to ring the bell. So whenever we put out an announcement or a new video, that way you'll get a notification. And I have to tell you, in our new studio, we're developing brand new shows.
We are.
We just hired a producer, and we are going to be bringing to you some great shows to really help you.
Dori's keeping us busy.
I am. So the first one we just did is Dori's Talk. So we're going to be doing that show. And then the other one is, of course, the book gathering. We just finished doing Think and Grow Rich. So those of you who would like to go and see that, you can go to YouTube again and see the Think and Grow Rich series. And now we're doing the Make You Millions with your MediSpa.
Yeah.
So we're super excited.
I am. I'm so excited. I'm so thankful that you invited me to come on and be part of your book gathering, Dori.
Yeah.
And you know, so many people ask us your book, like you discussed earlier, you're getting ready to launch your 4th book. You're in the process of writing it.
Yeah.
What is your drive to keep writing more and more books?
You know, I just did a webinar about content, right?
Right.
And how important content is. One of the best things you can do to differentiate yourself and your business as an individual, as an entrepreneur, is content. And what a better way to get your voice and your message out, like I was just talking about, but through content, through writing, through taking your thoughts and putting them on paper and let others benefit from it. So really, it's my calling to help business people become better at what they do. And if I don't do that, then how will they find out the information?
Right. And we all know you have so many thoughts, because I mean, even like the studio, it's a vision of yours and now it's a reality. And I have to say, even your first book, it still gets ordered. It's constantly going off the shelves here. So I know the more books, the more content that you give to this industry, they are sucking it up and loving it. I mean, we cannot keep this book on stock fast enough. And so I'm so excited about seeing your 4th book come to reality.
Thank you. Well, don't put pressure on me, though.
No pressure.
It's finding the time to complete it, but it's in the works. Actually, my 4th book is going to be geared toward your team members, not so much for leaders, because I feel that though you are a great leader yourself, and I've given you a lot of information about that, so I want to also be able to help you develop your team and get them to be the best that they can be. So that's going to be my next book. But let me tell everybody, first of all, how we structured how to make millions with your medical spa. So when you first get into the book, you're going to find that we have 4 different parts to it. And within each part, we have several chapters. And the first part we're discussing right now is financial health. And then we're going to go into marketing. And then we'll get into how to generate more sales. And then we're going to wrap up with how to build a high-performing team so they can help you reach the goals that you need to reach. So those are the things that we actually are going to talk about. One point, though, I want to make, and I talk about this here in the beginning, is that the more you learn, the more you will earn. And that's one of my favorite phrases. Actually, I've been practicing this forever because I'm always learning, and I really want to stress upon you to always keep learning, because if you want to earn more, you definitely have to learn more. So our whole goal is to help everyone reach success the fastest way possible. That's really our goal. That's the mission of our entire company, is we want to take what you have right now and add all the tools and the systems and the structure that we teach so you can totally elevate your success. So those are the things, and the reason why I really wrote this book is to arm you with what you need. So the things we talk about mainly are the 4 S's, right? And I really want you to jot those down, because if you have the 4 S's in your business, it's going to lead to the 5th S, which is success. So the 4 S's are systems, structure, strategies, and solutions. So everything you're going to read in here is proven effective, and they've been tested, And as long as they fit in within the 4 S's, you know you're on the right track. But if you're not systemizing your business, and if you're not having the proper structure and strategies in your business, then you're leaving it to a chance. And that's the last thing you want to do. You want to be purposeful. You want to be doing the things that you really need to be doing.
When I think in the book you mentioned there's 2 paths, right? It's the long and complicated, or it's that fast and for sure. And I think the way the 4 S's are built, it's that fast and for sure path that they're going to be taking.
Yeah.
And I love the systems. I mean, you have a system for everything, and the nice thing is every system works.
Yes.
And
It has a purpose.
It has a purpose, right?
Yeah. And the thing is, you have to really know where you're going first of all, and why you're doing this. And in the book, I try to target people who are just starting, or people who are already in business. So just because you're starting out doesn't mean that you can't still take all this information and really put it to good use. As a matter of fact, you're better off than most people because you don't have any bad habits yet. But the advice I want to give you right off the bat is not to try to reinvent the wheel, because as Tara was just mentioning, there's 2 ways to go about your business. You can sit and take your time and be a turtle, if you will, and try to come up with your own ideas, your own strategies, your own structure. Can you get there? Yes, but it's going to be the longer path.
Right.
So why not? If you are going to start a business, and that's what we talk about in part 1, financial health, a little bit about starting out, or if you're already. So no matter where you are, you can take these principles that we're talking about and actually apply them.
Hey,
So,
Dori, real
yes.
quick. Jane Kimball Irving said, "Hey, Dori, have
Hi,
you made
Jane.
millions?"
Absolutely. Absolutely. How else can I teach you how to make millions if I haven't made
I
them?
was just saying she practices what she preaches.
Of course, of course. I wouldn't have been able to build this beautiful studio in the middle of pandemic if I wasn't wealthy and millionaire. But thank you for the question though. Yeah, see, it's very difficult, and that's a very important point, and thank you so much, Jane. Now, if I was not successful and I'm trying to teach you how to be successful, I would be like, what the?
It'd be like the blind leading the blind.
Yeah, like what right would I have
Well, I think it's the
to
authority.
be teaching how to make millions if I'm not making millions?
Well, I think that ties into the authority, right? You just finished
Yes.
a webinar talking about the authority.
Yeah.
You are the authority in
I
that.
am, yeah. So if you missed this webinar that we did today, it will be on YouTube, and it was about how to become the authority and get paid your true worth, or be known for what you do in your industry and get paid your true worth. And what I shared with everybody is the fact that if you are going to get up and go to work, you might as well be the authority for what you do, or else again you're being like everybody else and you're not setting yourself apart from everyone. So if you are going to be in business, you might as well make millions. What's the point of going into business? As a matter of fact, I shared some percentages on this webinar, and only 4% of all businesses, there's 28 million businesses in the US, and only 4% actually reach the 1 million. So I'm already in the 4% that are already reaching. Actually, I'm beyond that, because then the next percentage I shared was that 0.4% make 10 million. So the choice of yours is, if you want to make millions, then you better start applying what we're talking about, because everything we talk about in here are proven effective methods to help you make millions, for sure.
So talking about making millions, you know, one of the statements, we always talk about Doriisms, right? And so in your book you mentioned people don't plan to fail, they fail to plan.
Mm-hmm.
And in this process of making millions, we all know you start with a business plan, right? So can you tell us why someone should spend time on actually doing a business plan with the feasibility study, and how valuable that's going to be to them long term?
That's like the most important thing. And the business plan is not only for a brand new business, but it's also for any business that's been, because your business plan needs to be evolving the whole time. If you don't have a plan every single year for what you're trying to accomplish, then again, you're leaving it to a chance, and that's not a good idea. So my advice, whether you are starting or whether you're already in business, it's always good to look at what you're doing right now and see what is working. Keep doing it if it's working. If it's not, then what can we do to make it better? But the problem that I see with most people, and those are some of the points I really want to make in our book gathering, is to show people what mistakes are others making and how can they avoid them and how can they succeed. I think that's going to be the heart of what we're talking about here. So I was at a conference. As you know, I speak everywhere, and I was at a conference one time, and this doctor came up to me. He's a plastic surgeon, and I was speaking about opening up places, and he comes up to me at the end of my talk and says, "Dori, that was so great. Thank you so much for all the information. I'm so excited. I'm going to open up a medical spa." He was in Vegas. I said, "Oh, great. So do you have a business plan?" He said, "No, I really don't need a business plan. It's all up here in my head."
Oh,
and I just looked at him and I said, "Yeah, okay."
You probably were thinking, good luck with that.
Yeah, I don't need a business plan. Well, let me tell you, everybody needs a business plan, especially if you're just starting out. And again, annually, you should revamp it. And the business plan should contain information that can be shared with the rest of the team. So not only you as an entrepreneur, the visionary, know what you're trying to do, but the business plan is meant to be shared with the rest of the team so everybody can help you make that vision a reality. So not only your team, but also with like your vendors, with your partners, anybody that you do business with, whether you're gonna buy a piece of equipment or not. So when you detail your plan as much as possible, you're going to be able to have that clarity that you need to actually make it a reality.
So you're saying it shouldn't be hidden in a book somewhere, in a closet, in a drawer. They need to have it out, and they revisit it. I mean, as we all know, this is an added piece to inspiration management, so you have implemented it into your business plan. And would you say that having a good business plan is also setting you up for what your exit plan would be too?
Actually, that's a very good point, because you should really be thinking about that when you get into business. And that's one of the biggest problems, is a lot of people don't know how they're going to exit. And the whole purpose of going into a business, it's either to pass it on to family members or to sell it. That's really why you go into business. So if you're going into business without thinking how you're going to exit out, which most people don't do, but that's why they need people like us, so we can show them what's the ultimate goal here. How long are we going to be in business? How much can we grow the business to? And how much are we going to be able to sell it for once we're ready to exit? But if we don't strategically plan all these steps, then again, we're leaving it to a chance. So you might win, you might lose. So why would you want to set yourself up for losing in any way?
Right. And you mentioned about autopilot, right? It's a common thing that we always hear. So a business plan in all of your systems, is it actually setting their business up to run on autopilot?
Absolutely. That should really be their goal. My goal is to not even be in here. The only time I really want to come to my office is to do speaking, right? To work in my studio. They're moving in here. She's taking over my office. She's like trying to chase me out of my office, saying, "This is your office
I've already
now."
ordered a plaque and everything.
So you have to really set things up to run on autopilot, because at the end of the day, the reason people go into business, what I hear from everybody, including myself, is to have more freedom, come and go as they please, make more money, have less stress, and do whatever they want, basically, right? Live the lifestyle that they want to live. Well, instead, what ends up happening is most people end up working harder, have more stress, barely pay themselves, and they get on that cycle, that hamster wheel, the wheel that keeps going around and around and around. They can't get off of it, which is a terrible place to be. So if they systemize their process, then things will be running on autopilot. Because when you have systems, you have consistency, accuracy, and growth. And when you have those three things going for you, then you don't have to be there all the time. But what happens in most cases is people end up letting the business manage them instead of them managing the business. And if you don't have the 4 S's, that's where you end up getting stuck. And that's the worst place to be.
So you just mentioned something that we have, it seems like it's a problem in this industry. You talked about paying yourself. Mm-hmm. So Jeanette had sent an email with this question and said, do I really have to pay myself now since I'm just starting out? And if so, how do I put the value of myself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a very good question. And that's where a lot of people actually drop the ball. So let's say you go into business, right? And this actually amazes me that people still practice this. They go into business and then they work for free.
Right.
So suppose you do injectables. Let's say you're an owner and you're actually working in your business and you do the injectables. And then at the end of the month, what happens? If you don't pay yourself, that means you worked for free. Now, if you had hired someone to do those injectables, mm-hmm. you would have paid them, right?
Absolutely.
So you need to treat yourself as an employee. So if you're going to do the work, then you better pay yourself for that work. Okay. And if you go into business with a business plan in mind and knowing how much money you have to invest in the business, that's why a feasibility study is important. Because the number one reason people close their business is they run out of cash. So if you don't have enough cash to start to begin with, then you're setting yourself up for failure from the beginning, and that's not very smart. So if you're going to go into business, you have to be able to find a way financially to pay yourself, pay for your marketing, be able to open up, and then have a reserve fund. Okay. Because if you don't do these things, then literally what you just did is bought yourself a job that doesn't pay you. And why would you want to buy yourself a job that does not pay you? Right. Do your employees work for free? Mm-hmm. Absolutely not. We pay them. So you need to consider yourself an employee and pay yourself.
Right. So even if they're going to be the doctor and they're not doing injectables, right? So we do business plans for people all the time mm-hmm. who are opening up. And if they're the doctor, we always put in there paying for a medical director. And they're mm-hmm. like, well, I'm the doctor, I'm the medical director. Mm-hmm. But trying to explain to them the value of why they need to be paying mm-hmm. themselves. So, we structure it right from day one, that they're paying themselves as the medical director. Mm-hmm. Would you recommend, or I've had people comment and say, well, how about I pay myself year 2, year 3?
Yeah.
Do you believe that if they don't plan ahead of time, they're never going to get to the point where they're paying themselves?
Well, actually, we have a brand new member that just joined us. He's a doctor. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to name any names because some of you would know him. He's been in the med spa, open a med spa for, I think, almost 3 years. And he's still not paying himself. Now, the only way he can keep that going is because his medical practice is actually making money to cover it. Okay. And that's not good. If he's generating already a couple $1 million. So if he's generating a couple $1 million and he's not paying himself, that tells me his financial ratios are all out of whack. Okay. Because if they're set up properly to begin with, and they took financial health into consideration, then he would not be in that situation. And we just helped them actually through that transition. We just went through their financial model, looked at their financial ratios to see why he's not paying himself. Why isn't there enough profit to pay himself? That's silly. Well, that tells me that their pricing is out of whack. Mm. And you know what's funny about this particular place is they're booked like 2 months in advance, and yet they're not making any money. The reason for that, again, is they're being too cheap, mm-hmm. they're not raising their prices, and they're not able to pay themselves what they deserve. Well, that's a terrible place to be. Why would you want to, again, open up a business and support everybody else, support all your employees? They're making money, yet you're not making money. Yet you have all the pressure and the tension and the sleepless nights and the belly aching, and I mean, it's a terrible place to be. Why would you want to be there?
I mean, could you imagine you doing all this work and then not paying yourself for this? No. I mean, I could only imagine how someone in that position feels realizing that they're not actually gaining anything from it personally.
Yeah.
Because
not only are they not gaining, but they're feeling the pain.
Right.
That's not a good place mentally to even be in.
And it feels like they're only just always working.
Mm-hmm.
So, before we shift on to pricing for a moment, we talked about paying yourself. So Michelle had sent in a question and said, how do I pay myself when I'm just starting out? Are we just going to pull a number out of thin air? Or is there a method to how they should pay themselves?
Definitely. I mean, we spend a lot of time. We will be talking about compensation model in future chapters. But you should pay yourself for the work that you do. So if you are doing injections, you should pay yourself as an injector. Okay. If you're doing facials or whatever, you should be paid as if you had an esthetician. If you are the manager, then you should be getting paid as a manager. And again, your entire budget, and we'll be talking a little bit more about that, but your entire budget should be structured in a way where there's allowance for all these things. Gotcha. And if we don't have an allowance for how we're gonna run our finances, and the sad thing, you know what, most people don't even have a budget. Like, they don't know. They just realize, how much money do I have left in the bank? Oh, okay, we can pay our bills this month. Not a good place to be.
What happens, we had a new member come on, and I asked her, I said, well, let's look at your P&L statements, and she's like, so should I ship it to you? And I'm thinking, ship what? I'm like, you can't just do it from QuickBooks. And she's like, oh no, they're in a box in the corner. I'm like, you mean you don't have it on a system? And she's like, I just write checks and then just hope for the best. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, how do you know? And she goes, the checks don't stop bouncing, so I just keep writing. And I'm like, that is not a way. I'm like, well, I'm glad that you're a mastermind member, because we're going to change that.
That's
the first thing we did is set up a QuickBooks for her.
Yeah.
I'm going to interject just really quickly, because I'm losing these as the screen starts scrolling. But Jane did comment, good for you, for software. She said, most people are unwilling to put in the time, or what she calls sweat equity.
Yeah.
Right? But she did have a comment. She said people who do not pay themselves need therapy.
Yeah.
There's a deeper problem with their relationship with money.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
Right.
But you'll be amazed how many people do not. It's crazy how many people do not.
Well, that's one of the mistakes that we're helping people now avoid.
Absolutely.
Is you've heard it right here on the book gathering. Dori says you have to pay yourself.
That's right.
So no more mistakes there. So,
sure.
The next part is shifting into pricing, right? We talk about, in order to know how much to pay themselves or how much to charge for treatments, there's a calculation, there's a method,
there's a formula.
Being able to come up with those prices. I hear so many people say, we help them make up the prices, and they think we just pulled it out of thin air. Like, we have a bucket over here in InSPAration Management, and we're just drawing from them.
That sounds good.
So can you share with us your formula on how to get the exact pricing for their treatments and what's involved into it?
So that's where financial ratios come into the picture. And a lot of people, the way they price, they don't follow really the formula that they should be following. As a matter of fact, I was doing a seminar one time, and we were going around the room because I found out that some people are only charging like $80 for a facial. And I knew that particular brand that they were using, and I knew that just the product cost alone for that facial was $25. Okay. So if you're making 80, if you're bringing in 80 and you have $25 for product cost, then you have to pay your esthetician, then you have to bring in your operating cost, then you have to bring in your profit margin, and there's none left because the price is not greater than all your expenses. So there's 4 financial ratios you need to look at. So out of each dollar that comes into your business, so much of it is going to be the operating cost, so much of it is going to be your product cost, then you have your compensation, and then how much profit you're gonna get to keep. So the first step in really realizing the pricing is, first of all, you need to find out what are those ratios. So you need to take your P&L statement, your profit and loss statement, and you need to calculate what those ratios are. So let's say your operating costs are $30,000 and you're bringing in $100, so that's 30% of operating costs. Let's say your compensation is another 30%, so that's 60, right?
Right.
And then you have your product cost, let's say that's another 20, So we're at 80, and let's say you want to make 20% profit. So that's 100%. Now we're at a wash. So let's say we're pricing a facial. So then we need to take the price of that facial and we need to apply all these financial ratios to that facial to ensure that we have at least 20% profit. Because if you don't have that profit, then again you're working for nothing, and that's stupid. You don't want to work for nothing. You don't want to pay all your bills, pay all your team, pay your product costs, and end up with nothing. So you need to take those things into account. And if you don't, you're never going to have a good, healthy business. So pricing is definitely one of the most important things. And what happens in most cases is you start running these specials and these the stupid Groupons and whatever else you're doing, and you're competing on price and trying to see who's going to be the cheapest in the area, and it's just not smart, not a smart way. So, and we even have like a pricing calculator to really help you find out all these ratios to make sure that even if you give a discount, you're still profitable. As a matter of fact, this is a process that we take you through right when we first start working with you. Those are the things that we look at. Your whole P&L statement, where are these financial ratios, and how can we make it a healthier business.
Well, and it's so hard, like, you talk about P&L statements, and here at InSPAration Management, you look at the P&L statements every single month, and I can't tell you how many times we have people come to us and they haven't seen it for months, years. They don't have no idea.
They don't pay attention.
So what would you recommend? I know how we do it here, but what would you recommend in order to ensure that they have a healthy business? How often should they look at their P&L statements? And what are some key things they should be looking for?
Yeah, so they should be looking for these financial ratios that we just talked about. And you just want to make sure that they're in balance. You want to make sure your profit margin is where you want it to be. And then when you look at your P&L statement, you want to find out what is in it that's a red flag. Like maybe your product cost all of a sudden is through the roof.
Okay.
Well, maybe your team, or maybe you don't have a system in place to actually order. You don't have purchase orders. You're not approving. Anybody can order whatever the heck they want. And it's the wild, wild west. Well, if that's the case, all of a sudden this month, our product cost is going to go through the roof because everybody's ordering stuff that they should not be ordering. So those are the things. You want to look at your compensation ratio. You want to look at your product cost, your operating expenses, and your net profit. Those are the 4 things that you must look at every single month. And by the way, your accountants make mistakes. I just got a mistake this past week with my financials. I'm looking at them and I'm like, something doesn't sound right here. And called him up, and sure enough, he messed up. So if you don't look and pay attention, people make mistakes, and you need to really be on top of your numbers.
Well, in the book you mentioned, don't wait too long. It's better to need a Band-Aid than intensive care.
Oh, no kidding.
So what would be your statement for waiting too long? Should they wait until the 31st to look at last month's? And at that point, is it too late to try to correct for the next month?
Well, they need to be looking daily. Like, I drive you crazy every day. Are we on target? Are we above target? Are we below target? Where are we? And if you don't look at things every single day, you check your appointments, you see how many new clients are coming in, you see how many appointments we have for the day, we total up our numbers, and we're checking. We have actually a daily calculator. If you've attended the Leap Ahead seminar, or if you are a member with us, then you can actually tap into all those from the MedSpa University. Thank you. I'm having a senior moment here. So you can download it, and daily, this calculator is amazing. So daily you'll be able to plug in your numbers and see whether you are on target, because we let everybody do their budget, right? So we know how much we want to do for the month. And I shouldn't probably just call it budget. It's a forecasting and budgeting a program that we have, that you have access to if you're a Leap Ahead graduate or a member. And then that way you have your number for the month. The whole team knows what that number is. And then we're able to monitor daily. You can't wait till the end of the month to figure out That's like watching a game and the coach is not taking any time out and the team is getting their ass kicked.
Right.
Not a good situation. You take timeouts, right? Well, that's exactly what you want to do here. You take a timeout, you see where you are, you make adjustments, and you move on.
So, you know, we have our financial management and reporting program, and in that, our clients receive their P&Ls on the 10th of the month. So do you think that's a good time frame? They get them on the 10th, you know, they look at them a couple of days, and they can know right away before the second week is even up, where can they shift, what do they need to adjust, and then they have that time out, if you will.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even without a P&L statement, if you're monitoring your daily numbers, you know where you're going to end up for the month. I mean, if you know your business, you know, I know what's on the P&L statement before I even get it.
It's not a surprise.
We're monitoring, because you know if your top number is where it needs to be, then the rest, if it's ratio balanced, then the rest is going to be expected.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you won't be totally out of this shop.
Yeah, no.
You know, and something I really loved in the book, and I've even highlighted it in mine, it says, one of your statement is, the goal financial is to have a healthy business. How do you determine a healthy business?
A profitable business.
It's got to be profitable.
Absolutely. If you're not profitable, you're sick, and you're going to go to intensive care. And, you know, that analogy actually is very important. A lot of times, people take the path of a slow death. I use the story with the frog. So, for example, let's say you take a frog and you put it in a pot of water, and you start turning the stove up a little bit at a time. Well, that frog will sit in that water and basically die through the heat being increased. It's a slow death, not realizing it's dying, right? That's how many businesses are. But if you take a frog and you put it in a pot of boiling water, what does the frog do?
Jump out.
Jump out! Yes. And that's what we want our business to be like. We want to be so aware of what is happening in our business so we can make that jump. We don't want the slow death of a frog. And that's what so many businesses actually experience. They don't even know that they're dying.
Right.
They're just sitting in that pot and they're boiling to death without realizing. That's bad financial health. So if you're a business owner, you gotta be on top of your game. But see what happens a lot of times, Tara, is they get so busy doing the daily work that they don't have time to pay attention to the most important things.
Well, they're doing exactly what you always say. They're working in the business and not on the business.
Exactly.
And I have to say that's one of the key things when we start working with members and people who are doing business plans and structure them, and we always tell them, the first thing is to get you out of that room, because if they're stuck in that room from opening till close, they have no idea what's happening in their business.
Exactly.
And that's how they're financial, they lose their healthiness, right?
Well, actually, and that's another point I want to make is, you know, we work with Empire Medical Training. We do all the business seminar for their organization. And a lot of the people that go to Empire are actually medical professionals, and they're learning the trade. They're learning the trade, but what they're doing actually is they're learning a job. So there's a difference between, do you want a job to go in and learn how to do these things, or do you want to be an entrepreneur? There's a big difference between the two. And there's nothing wrong with doing the job.
Right.
But if you are going to be in the room, then you need to find somebody to manage the business. Because if you're in the room, nobody's managing the business. So you gotta have that balance. And if you are gonna be in the room, then are you getting paid your true worth? And that's one problem I think a lot of people have, is they think that they have to do the work, but you really don't. I was doing a private coaching session with a member this morning, and she was telling me that she's gonna start operating. She's a plastic surgeon, and she's gonna start operating. And we're trying to team her up with the day spa in Boca to become a medical director for them. And she's like, yeah, but I can only donate a couple of days a month to this day spa. But see, that's small thinking. Why would you care? If you're the medical director And if you're trying to arrange this relationship with this day spa to increase your exposure and increase your revenue, you don't have to do the work. You can always hire someone to come in and do the work, and then now you're the true entrepreneur. But see, those are the kind of mindset thinking that a lot of people get stuck, and it takes someone like us to like wake up. That's not how you have to do it. Well, you can do it a different way.
I have to say, I bet now she's happy she had that conversation with Dori, realizing the potential she had, right?
Yeah, it was totally I could have had a V8 moment.
Well, and it happens so much because when you're trained at a trade and it's not business, you don't think about these things. And so they can be the best injector, the best plastic surgeon, but they never really look at the business aspect of it. And I love that that's where we come into play so much for so many members and entrepreneurs. So, you know, we've talked about finances, the budgeting, the P&L statement, but let's talk about where the money's coming from, because that's really the heart of where it's coming from. You know, we talked about assessing treatments, what they're selling, what they're not, their pricing. So do they just, because the competitor down the street is charging $9 for Botox, do they just charge $9 for Botox? And what would be your main focus for them when deciding their prices?
Well, they have to decide revenue streams, first of all. Like, where am I going to make the money? What department is going to generate what for me? So when we're looking at our budget, our overall number that we want to achieve, well, that number should be broken down into different departments, and how much is each department going to bring to me. So when it comes to pricing, you definitely don't want to be the cheapest. I think being the cheapest is not a good thing for your positioning. So it really depends on what kind of place you want to have, the target market that you have. But should you be the cheapest? Absolutely not. I'm totally against being the cheapest of anything. And you have to really position yourself again as the expert and be able to buy. It's okay to be the most expensive even. It's okay to be expensive. But what you need to decide on is, what are those revenue streams? Where am I going to make the money for face, for example? Am I going to do injectables? Am I going to do PRP? Am I going to do facials? Am I doing eye treatments? Am I doing peels? Am I doing IPLs? What am I doing? So you need to identify those revenue streams for face, and then come up with the revenue amount that you want to generate from that. Then let's say you have sexual health. Then, okay, what are the treatments for that, and how much revenue I can generate from that? I'm gonna do body contouring. Okay, well, what kind of treatments? Do I have to buy a laser? Am I buying any kind of equipment? So those are all the things that really need to be focused on from the very beginning, especially if they're just opening. Now, if they're already open, you need to take a look at how much am I generating per revenue stream, and how can I improve that? How can I become better? How can I get more revenue into my place?
So when you're talking about those revenue streams, again, we had a question coming in, and they're asking on how do they, you know, you kind of talked about it, but they really just don't understand how to price their treatments again. So is there a formula that you're using when it comes to the team members for it? And that was from Jeannie here.
Yeah, so it's basically, we already answered that question about the pricing. And if you need further help with that, you should reserve a private coaching call, and we can walk you through that process. It's really, I mean, there's a lot involved in setting up a price. It takes some time to look at exactly what you have, the type of experience that you deliver. Again, what are your operating costs, your compensation, and your product costs. You need to take all that into effect, and then see how much profit you're going to be able to make from that.
So then let's shift into our KPIs. So it's something, you know, if they've worked with you before, they always hear KPIs, and that stands for your key performance indicators.
Yep.
And there's so many to monitor. In the book, I know you gave us 11 different KPIs to monitor. But what would you say is the starting point and the most focus that they should use, because you do use it when paying their team members.
Absolutely. And we'll talk about this also a little bit more during the compensation section. But your KPIs should be your rewards and your bonuses that you recognize the team for. And they are very important. So one major thing you should be measuring is your volume per guest. Is how much is each person generating for each guest that comes in. And we have a formula here on how to calculate your volume per guest. So really this should be your homework from this chapter, is to calculate your volume per guest for treatment sales as well as retail, and see where the team is by person. And then you can set the new targets that you want to reach. But the KPI should be tied in addition to the volume per guest. That's the other thing you should be measuring. And one of the most important things to measure and to help you grow the business is what we call the 5 R's. So you have to definitely measure the number of referrals that you can get. So I was just, I go to a little day spa in Daytona to get a manicure and a pedicure. And the Robin who does my nails said, oh, we have a brand new esthetician. She's used to work in medical spas, and she does great at dermaplaning and facials and this and that. So she comes up, she introduced her to me, and I started asking her some questions about, you know, how is she doing, this and that, building her clientele. She was brand new. I said, I just have a quick question for you. Do you ask for referrals? And she's like, no, but I get them all the time. I'm like, well, imagine how many more you would get if you ask.
Wow. That's
But you know what? That's not unusual.
right.
And if you don't have KPIs, then your team is not going to know to ask. So if you set a target for how many referrals, how many reviews, how many memberships, how many reactivated clients, how many whatever else recommendations
Reviews
that they make. So those are all things that the team should have a target for, and they should be recognized for. And if you don't do that, then it's not going to get better. But to me, referrals and reviews are the two most important things that you should definitely be measuring, because the reviews are going to help you get more people because you're spreading good word, and the referrals is going to help you increase the capacity because you have more clients.
So would you count that as part of their goal setting? Each month those numbers should increase. And when you talk about increasing them, is it a daily increase? Is it a weekly, a monthly, a yearly? If they met their goal last month, should it be a challenge to try to exceed it this month?
I would go more than 1 month. I would probably revisit my goals every 3 to 4 months to see whether they're too easy. Do we need to adjust them? Especially when somebody is brand new. Like we just went on site. We helped a beautiful resort spa, community spa open up, and they have a great team, absolutely beautiful location, and it's exactly what we're talking about. Is they didn't have, because they're brand new, they didn't have the history to set proper targets. So initially, when you're first starting out, you're kind of forecasting what the VPG should be, what the revenue, what the reviews, the membership sales, all that. But once you have some solid history, like let's say 3 months, 6 months, you can go back and revisit these targets and make the necessary adjustments.
You know, we talked about targets and goals, and VPG is part of those numbers that shouldn't be hidden to team members or anything. But how often should they break down their VPGs for their team? Should their team member know in that break room what their VPG that they met yesterday? Should they know what their target is for the whole month running?
Yeah, and we'll talk about that more in future chapters. We'll be discussing the daily success planning meeting. And during the daily success planning meeting is all about recognizing the team and making them feel good about achieving their targets and their goals, and making them feel good about accomplishments. But if they don't, then you need to set up a separate time for coaching and training to be able to help them actually become better at what they do. And those are all very important things to really do with the team. But yeah, you definitely need, my advice is just like they do in sports. You know, everybody knows the statistics, right? And whether it's baseball, football, whatever, everything is published. And you should do the same thing. In your team lounge, you should have your charts of where everybody is. Are they on target, not on target? Recognize them, make them feel good, or coach them so they can reach them.
Right. And, you know, I know we have about 10 minutes left. We started off with telling them how to avoid mistakes, right? So in their financials, what would you say is probably 2 of their key pitfalls to be aware of when setting up? You know, we've talked about whether they're open or whether they're headed to open up. Could you tell them like 2 pitfalls, to avoid right now?
Well, probably one of them is not paying attention to their branding.
Okay.
And that would be like, that's so key. The way they present themselves to the public, to the consumers, from their logo to their website to their social media platforms. So, because when you show up, you want to show up good.
Right.
You don't want to look like you have a website that was homemade and things are not working properly and it's not a good user experience, and that's just going to start you off. And you know what's funny is a lot of people, I was doing the Empire business class not too long ago, and one of the things we do is tough love. We pull up somebody's website and we assess it. So this girl says, yes, please pick me. So I pulled up this website, and I kid you not, it did look like she made it in a basement. And here's her answer to me. And of course, I want to be nice and not, you know, be too rough, though I am rough sometimes. I know, I get it. I'm very blunt, needless to say. But she's like, when I started critiquing it a little bit was tough love, you know, boxing gloves type of thing with velvet. And I started saying some comments, and then her response back to me is like, well, yeah, it's just something I threw together. Like, what kind of bullshit is that? What do you mean you just throw it? There is no such thing as throwing it together. Like, what is your consumer? What is the people that are going to come to you going to think about that? They're not even going to come to you. They're going to disappear because you just threw it together. That's not what we want. I mean, could you imagine Tiffany or Neiman Marcus or Bloomingdale's throwing something together? No, it's your reputation on the line. Don't just throw something together. So that would be one thing. The other thing is really not having a plan, not having a business model. And that's really what we're going through here, is an effective business model. And most people do not have a business model. They wing it. Most people operate like the wild, wild west. They just come to work and let's just see what happens today. We have no focus, nothing. We just show up and see what comes up. Not a good way to operate. So, and my whole thing, Tara, is just you gotta be purposeful.
Right.
You gotta know what you're going after, make the plan, and then take the action to accomplish it.
And we'll get into more of that planning. I know we'll be talking about the DSP, the Daily Success Planning. And not only are you planning the business, but each team member here. I mean, we all know what our plan is today, what the goal is, and how we're going to accomplish it.
Yeah, and if you don't, you hear it.
Yes, you do. So we have a question that came in.
Let's give them some shortcuts too. Yes, go ahead.
So Cindy is asking here, currently I have to wear multiple hats. How can I wear these hats effectively, because she can't get rid of them at the moment?
The only way you could really wear multiple hats effectively is if you were a master of your time management, where you have one day you're going to do marketing, one day you're going to do your operations, one day you're going to do your team building or your training. So if you're not a master at organizing your time and your schedule, then it's never going to work. What do they say? You're the master of
none.
All trades. Or you're a jack of all trades and
master of none.
That's what happens. So be very careful. I mean, it's okay to start that way, maybe for 1 month, but you definitely need to hire your receptionist, because you should not be collecting money. You should not be answering your own phone. You should not be doing these things. So that makes a big difference.
And I know we are going to be doing this every other Monday, so there's more topics about that where you discuss
Yes,
more in
for sure.
detail. So we'll definitely be
Yeah.
answering more of those questions. So let's leave you with what Dori just mentioned. She wants to mention some
You have a question?
shortcuts
Yes.
to success. But let's take a question from Facebook Live here.
Yes. So I have a question from Classic Vantage Spa. When we were speaking about KPIs, they got joined in a little bit later than everyone else, and they said, "But wait a minute, Dori, have you talked about memberships yet?"
Yeah, no, not yet. That's coming up in future chapters. But we do have a program you can go and learn about it. It's called the Kpis system. If you're looking for ways to implement memberships, which by the way you should be doing right now, because we have members that are kicking butt right now with memberships, generating thousands and thousands of dollars every single month just from memberships. So the Kpis system can be found in the shopping cart, so you can start on it right away.
Right.
Let's go over some shortcuts,
Yeah,
some
that would
things
be great.
for financial health. What can they do?
So we're going to start off with always beginning with the business plan, which we've discussed. Select the right
Now,
treatment.
we should tell them that we do business plans. So
That
you
is true.
two ways. You can do a business plan totally customized,
Mm-hmm.
or you can just buy a little template and do it. So we have two ways we do business plans.
So select the right treatments and setting the pricing for profits.
Yep.
And we have a pricing calculator as
Pricing
well to help with
calculator
them.
also in the shop if you'd like to go.
You talked about creating a detailed budget, and
Yep.
we have that. We have a solution for everything.
We do.
And the budget, so many people comment that they like because it's pre-formatted. They don't have to learn Excel. They don't have to do all these fancy number things. They just plug it in, and it breaks down the
I call
format.
it budget and forecasting for dummies.
Yeah, there you go. We're
Like
writing
my
that
dummy,
book.
like my dummies books. I love my dummies books.
Another shortcut to success is provide the teams with targets and goals,
Yeah.
which so many people don't.
Yeah.
They don't
A
even
lot
know.
of them don't. Yes.
Measure your financials, your P&L statements
Yep.
monthly, which if you don't know, we have our monthly P&L membership where we actually help you do that. You get your financials at the end of each month. You get to sit down and review them with a financial expert and be able to avoid those intensive care scenarios
That's
that
right.
you mentioned.
Yeah.
And then
Don't want to be on a respirator.
no, we'll mail a Band-Aid and get the Band-Aid going. And then continually monitoring, measuring every aspect of your business. I have to say, was probably one of the key things, right? Is monitor, monitor, monitor. If you don't,
Yeah.
then you have no idea.
Well, that's
what
why
to
we
expect.
call it financial health, because if you're not monitoring, you're not going to know whether you're healthy or not.
No.
And you don't want a business that's not healthy. That's like the worst feeling. That's not why we went into business. And that's why our passion is just make sure that you are healthy. So,
So
good.
it's been
Wow.
Time now.
That just flew by.
I know, and I'm
That's
so
just-
happy that we've taken it down to chapter by chapter,
Yeah.
and rather than
Because
just
there's a
pushing
lot of
through it.
information, yeah.
We've barely even touched financials
Yeah.
at the moment. We're just starting kind of introducing you. You always say people don't like numbers. We're gonna make numbers sexy, right?
right.
Because no one wants to talk about numbers,
Yeah.
but they are now. So would you say, since we're headed into this, we just finished the book gathering, Think and Grow Rich, all about mindset. What kind of mindset scenario would you leave them with to kind of transition their brain to recognize that their business needs to run healthy?
Yeah. Well, I think if you take the time to make a financial assessment right now, as a matter of fact, you can go and take one on InSPArationManagement.com under assessments. You'll be able to take a financial assessment to see where you are. Then I would say reserve a success planning session so we can go over that and then help guide you as to what's the best way to really progress from this point forward.
Perfect.
And if you do that, then you're not guessing. You can have a professional advice. We have helped so many people become healthier, and I'm confident that we can help you as well.
Well, I think with that, Dori, I'm going to tell them what we're going to be talking about next week
Next
and
week,
how to
yes.
keep them engaged.
The week after.
Yes. Oh, I apologize. So we're doing it every other Monday, so it'll be the week after next week. So we're going to be doing chapter 2, and it's implement a proven and effective business model.
Yeah, that's going to be one of my favorite things, like we just touched on this week. And you got to have a good business model to succeed. So that's going to be such a valuable chapter for you. So make sure you read it. If you don't have the book again, you can go to Amazon and get it, or from our website.
Right.
Thank you so much for being with us, and thank you, Tara.
My pleasure.
For
thank you, Dori.
Being here, and go join us on YouTube and subscribe if you have not already. Ring the bell so you can get notification from us. And
leave us comments. Keep sending in your questions. I know if you're not live with us, you can't submit them at the moment, but email them to us. You can always email them to info@InSPAration Management. You can comment on our YouTube channel, and then share. We want you to share this with everybody. So with that, Dori, I think it's time to go.
Stay inspired.